This is Conversations at the Well, a monthly podcast that invites you to listen to ideas and stories that will refresh and challenge. It doesn't matter what state you are in. When you come to the well, you will always leave inspired and renewed. Let's listen to today's conversation, hosted by Bishop Roy.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another conversation at the well. It is always a joy when you connect with us. I guarantee you that today you will be refreshed at the well. The waters are flowing. Today I have with me a very special and anointed servant of God, my dear friend Shauna-Kay Douglas. Shauna, it is such a joy having you joining me today in this conversation. How you do?
Thank you so much, Dr. Notice. I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine, and I'm doing all the better for having you sharing with us in this conversation.
It is such a delight to be here.
Oh, great. You know, Shauna has led and is leading a very exciting life, and she's going to take us on her life journey today. And so the first thing I'm going to ask Shauna to share with us is about her journey through Edwin Allen High School in the heart of Clarendon. How did that go?
Well, my journey at Edwin Allen was really interesting. It was really a fascinating journey. And a journey indeed, because I had to travel 1.5 hours from home to school. I did that for 7 years.
Where was home?
Home was in Blackwoods, Clarendon.
Wow.
Yes, so I had to travel 1.5 hours for school each day, but I did that for 7 years. But my journey, it was a transition for me from primary to high school. And so I wasn't so sure what that would have been like. But as I got there, at Edwin Allen High School, I must say it was a warm environment, and the teachers and classmates were supportive of me. It was at Edwin Allen that I discovered many things about myself as well, inclusive of talents and gifts and even inner fortitude that I would have possessed. Because I remembered when I was in first form, due to my visual impairment, I had to be very close to the chalkboard at school. And at Edwin Allen, they had the chairs that were joined together.
Yes.
So if they should pull the chair up, you have 4 chairs coming up at the same time. And so even though I was at the front of the class, I still had a challenge to see the chalkboard. And I remember that my teacher, my form teacher, she went to a third form class and got those loose chairs and desks and put it immediately under the board. And that was how I was able to see better so that I could perform well at Edwin Allen High School. I remember the jeers as well, because I apparently was the first person with such a situation. So you could imagine at break time, they would flood, students would come at the classroom and they would be laughing and talking.
So
and
how did you deal with all of that jeering and negative atmosphere?
That is the thing why I said to you earlier, Bishop, that it was at Edwin Allen I recognized I had inner fortitude. Because I remember even one of my classmates, she would quarrel with them and all of that, and I'd say to her, leave them alone. Because I had the belief that if I was able to sit GSAT at the time, grade 6 achievement test, and come to Edwin Allen, then I am able to come to Edwin Allen and do well, and that I did.
And you left Edwin Allen and you went on. It's amazing how, Shauna-Kay could really do that long journey for 7 years, came out of Edwin Allen successfully, and went to Church Teachers College. Now, why did you decide to choose a career in teaching?
Well, teaching for me is an opportunity not just to do chalk and talk, but to impact lives, to pour into others. And so I wanted to make a positive impact on our nation's future. And so I ventured into teaching. And I also had a passion for Spanish, the foreign language. So I went and studied Spanish at Church Teachers College.
And that lasted for how long?
That lasted for 3 years. I have a diploma in primary Spanish education.
Okay, if I will not ask you to say any Spanish words, because you may in turn as a teacher ask me to explain and to interpret and translate. So let's move on. So before the end of the Church Teachers College journey,
Right.
anything that is in your memory about that journey, the Church Teachers College journey?
The Church Teachers College journey. It was so fascinating because when I was at Edwin Allen, I actually prayed that I would reach a school, I would go to a college that had the same environment like Edwin Allen, because Edwin Allen embraced me, supported me, and all of that. So at Church Teachers College, I had a similar experience. One of the things that stood out for me at Church Teachers College, though, was that, again, it was a transitional phase in my life. And when I'm going to a place for the first time, it takes me some time to get adjusted because, again, of my visual challenge. And so I remembered when I went to Church Teachers College, I had to count the steps so that the next time I'm running up the steps. So I literally walk by faith and not by sight, right? And so I knew where my classrooms were. Even now, I have a mental picture of Church Teachers College, so I know where the places are. I know where to go for what. And so I remembered there was even a time when I struggled with that, with knowing the shortcuts, because Church Teachers College had some shortcuts, but because I know the long roads, I usually take longer to reach my destination. And I remembered this lecturer, she took me one day and she carried me around the campus, showing me the shortcuts and all. And I am very fascinated and excited when grades are out. And I remembered one night, one of my colleagues came to me and said a particular grade was out. And when I got the news, I immediately rushed downstairs, took one of those shortcuts in the night, and went and looked on my grades. The next day, a lecturer approached me and she said, I heard something. I said, what is that, miss? She said, one of her students in class today shared that a blind girl came to Church Teachers College and now she's seen.
Because you took my shortcut.
She saw me rushing to go and look for my grades, but she didn't know I was doing it from memory because I knew the shortcuts and all of that. So I was able, during the night, to do all of that.
No, your story is fascinating, and those who are tuning in, let me just tell you, for a person who is visually impaired to have gone through high school successfully and college successfully, it's an amazing story. We want to talk with Shauna-Kay a little about her visual impairment. Just tell us the level of it and how do you cope?
Right. So I was born this way, nearsighted, severely nearsighted, seeing 60% from one eye and virtually none from the other. And so I have difficulties seeing the chalkboard at school, difficulties going somewhere for the first time. But how I cope, I have strategies. So God has blessed me with a great memory. And because of that, I am able to remember even materials, even my sermons are done from memory. If I'm asked to do public speaking, that's done from memory as well. In fact, in 2010, I was named National 4-H Public Speaker, and that speech was done from memory. So God has given me great memory, and so I utilize strategies to get around it.
Wow, that is fascinating. And before you call Shauna-Kay to get some of her memory, you have to come through me because I need a dose of her memory. God has blessed you richly. You talked about sermons and speeches. I'm interested in the sermons. You are a pastor and a preacher. Now tell us about the transition from being trained as a Spanish teacher, primary school Spanish teacher, and now you are a pastor. You've been to college, you've been trained. Tell us about that, your call to the ordained ministry.
Well, interestingly, I received the call to ordained ministry as I was on the verge of leaving Church Teachers College. You know, as a young person finishing college, you felt so excited to go there and to become independent.
Yes.
And then at that time, while I was celebrating that moment, the Lord called me into ordained ministry. Of course, like Jonah, I ran away for 4 years.
You didn't take a cruise to anywhere. No.
A cruise. But I ran from the call. But the more I ran, is the more I recognized that this is really what God wants from me. And there are persons who would have sensed the call of God on my life as well. And so after 4 years, I decided to heed to the call of the Lord. And here I am today.
Wow. So after Church Teachers College, you spent 4 years at Church Teachers College.
3 years.
3 years.
I did a diploma.
And how long did you spend at Bethel Bible College of the Caribbean?
4 years.
4 years. So 7 years of study.
7 years of study. In fact, that was one of the things I said to God. I had a church brother who was training to be a doctor, and I said it made sense I go into that field because it's the same 7 years I'm spending. So I had a challenge with the time and the money. I felt at a point that I'd wasted time going to Church Teachers College and I'd wasted money. But when I went to Bethel, I recognized just how strategic God was in preparing me for where He's taking me.
And it's clear from Shauna-Kay's life that none of our experiences are wasted. God has a way of ordering our steps. So now you are pastoring. My understanding is that you're pastoring one of our historic churches. Tell us about that journey so far. You started when?
I started the 1st of September.
Yes.
At Mount Providence New Testament Church of God. Yes, the oldest church in Jamaica.
That's the oldest New Testament church in Jamaica.
New Testament church,
wow,
right,
wow.
in Jamaica. Yes, it has been rewarding so far. I'm enjoying the journey, and I'm really sensing the move of God and really feeling secured in the call that He has placed on my life. I'm enjoying the journey. The members are enjoying the journey as well.
I was just about to ask you, how were you received? One, being female, and two, visually impaired. Almost as if two things are against you, or are those things against you really?
Interestingly, they are not against me. They work together for my good.
Okay.
Yes, because one, being a female, they had a female pastor before me. Pastor Harry, she served them for over 20 years.
Oh, I see.
And so they had a good relationship with her and were very excited to have a female pastor.
Yes.
My first time at Mount Providence, when I shared with one of my deacons that I have a visual challenge, he immediately started to look out for me. So he even held my hand and telling me where to go and all of that. So the reception has been good. When I shared it at church, other members start to look out for me and so on. So the reception is really good, and God is moving in our midst.
I'm excited about that, and we couldn't end this conversation without sharing that you are also a poet, and a poet who has produced something for others to be able to feed on. Tell us about this publication that you have produced called Poetic and Epic. Let's talk about that. Yeah, we both hold up your publication, and I hold it with pride. Perhaps your pride is greater than mine.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So Poetic and Epic, where the Epic is an acronym which stands for edifying, practical, inspiring, compelling. This piece was birthed out of my love for poetry. It started again at Church Teachers College, where as an early foreign language teacher, I had to come up with creative ways to meet the needs of my students, and poetry was one of such. However, I did not see myself being a poet at the time until in 2014 when I was faced with unemployment. It was there that my love for poetry grew, because poetry gives me new perspective. It shifted my perspective and gave me meaning to life. And so this was where I started now to write poems and to share on social media. And persons would have been saying to me, you need to publish a book. And of course, I would say, yes, one day I will. However, in June of this year, I remember preaching a sermon on internship at Youth Sunday. God has chosen you. And one of the things I've recognized, especially on internship, was that whenever I preached a sermon, I can expect something, whether good or bad, to test the word, as it were, to see if I am really practicing what I'm preaching. Right? And so when I preached that word about God has chosen you from 1 Samuel 16, I remembered I came home and got some rest, and when I woke up, I saw a message from Dr. Smalling. Now, Dr. Smalling, she's the principal of Glenmere High School and an author herself. She would have been exposed to some of my writings, and she said to me, I hope you are planning to put these in a book. And I said to her, yes, confidently, yes, one day I will. But then she asked the question, when? And that when did it for me. And so I began to compile my pieces, and then I came up with this, Poetic and Epic. Its aim is to motivate, to give insight, to teach valuable lessons, to help you to find joy in your journey, value in the rubble, and clarity in the confusion.
Awesome, awesome. Is there a particular piece from it that you want to either read or say from memory, any verse from any one of the poems that you want to leave with us?
Sure.
Yes.
COVID Protocols Contemplation by Shauna-Kay Douglas. Lord, as I stand to take my temperature, I ask that you test my temper. Is it too hot, Lord? May my life's reading line up with your word. As my hands are sanitized, reveal those things in me that are disguised. Make me pure in your eyes and remove all those things that could jeopardize my walk with you and another level to rise.
Wow, wow. Indeed, you'll agree with me that this is epic. And I want Shauna-Kay to just say where we can purchase this book, this Poetic and Epic. Where can we get it?
Well, it is available on Amazon. You can get the Kindle version or paperback, or you can message me. I'm on Facebook, Shauna-Kay Douglas, and Instagram at Shauna-Kay Douglas to order your copy.
Oh, awesome. And I'm encouraging persons to support this wonderful servant of the Lord. I'm going to ask Shauna-Kay to leave a word with persons who are facing discouragement, who feel that the odds are against them, who feel that life is throwing stuff at them that they can't manage. Here is a servant of God who has pedaled her way through many difficult journeys because God is with her. Is there a word that you want to leave with the discouraged and the disheartened?
I just want to say to you, trust God. God is our author, and He knows everything that we go through in life. It doesn't matter how it looks now, it won't be stormy all the time. Seasons do change, and our God is the God of all seasons. Another thing I'd like to say to us is that perspective matters, and you can hashtag that on your Facebook and Instagram. Yes, perspective
Please do.
matters. And so while some persons may look on a glass and say it is half full, half empty, some persons are happy. At least they have a glass. right? And so perspective matters. It's not what happens to you, but it's how you react to what happens to you. And so whatever it is that you are faced with, know that God is not finished writing your story. Do not put a comma or a full stop rather where God has placed a comma. He is not through with you yet. And I can assure you that when he's finished writing your story, you will be a bestseller.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Cap that off with a Bible verse that you wanted us to leave with us. Yes.
One of the Bible verses that really stayed with me is from Jeremiah 1 verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Before I formed in the belly, I knew you. And before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. It's interesting that before we had an opinion of ourselves, before others had an opinion of us, our God knew exactly who we are and where we would be. And so where you are on your journey now, just know that the God who formed you, the God who knew you before you were conceived, has great plans in store for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shauna-Kay, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I've been inspired by this, and I want to thank those who have joined us. God bless you, and invite others to come and journey with you as you hear again the story of this anointed servant of God, teacher, pastor, preacher, poet, a person whom God has anointed for the task that he has for her. Perhaps God is calling you for something special and you have self-doubt. Remember, before you were thinking of yourself, God already formed an opinion of you. Walk in God's grace and in God's mercy. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next time for Conversations at the Well. I'm Roy Notice.